Good evening. It's an evening, this ELT time. And welcome to ELT Time MENA, which is, as you know, our coffee break style advancing learning podcast series, where for each episode, I'm joined by a guest, an educator based right here in the MENA region in the Middle East and North Africa. And together for about 30 to 40 minutes, we have a discussion on a contemporary topic of their choosing over a nice cup of tea or coffee or hot drink, depends on what you prefer at this time of the day. So today I am joined by Amira Salama, and Amira is the current president of AfricaELTA, which I'm assuming is the English Language Teachers Association, which is the regional association of African English language teachers. She's also an academic English and research writing instructor at Nile University in Egypt. She's got an MA in TESOL from the American University in Cairo. And she had a research focus on teacher leadership, which I'm sure we'll probably touch on a little bit. And she's currently pursuing her PhD in linguistics as well. And her professional interests and research include teacher mentoring, ELT material development, and teacher leadership. And of course, I'm really happy to have you with me this evening. Amira, good evening. How are you this evening?
Good evening, and how are you and how is everyone? Thank you for the invitation.
No, thank you for joining us on the podcast. We're really happy to have you with us because the topic that we're going to be engaging with this evening, I know you've got a lot of experience in and you're doing a lot of work on. So I'm super excited about that. But before we introduce that, do you have a hot drink? I don't think you have a hot drink, do you? What do you have to drink this evening?
I do, I have, but I don't have tea. I have cinnamon because I like to drink cinnamon at night.
Okay, so is it just hot water with a cinnamon stick?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. I've got Rooibos, which is caffeine-free because it's getting quite late here in the UAE. So no more caffeine for me today. So I've got Rooibos in the background here.
Yeah, that's nice.
I guess it's a red, I think it's a red tea, isn't it, Rooibos?
Yes, you can call it as such.
Yeah, red tea. I think red tea is very popular in Egypt from what I have discovered more recently. Yeah.
That's true. That's true, yes.
Okay, so this evening is all about, as you've seen from the screen, it's about advancing gender equity in education or in ELT here in MENA. And of course, we don't want to spend 30 to 40 minutes, just kind of saying, well, this is bad, this is wrong, we need to be doing this. We want to be looking at this in a really positive way. So before we start, of course, I want to wish my guest, Amira, a very blessed, I guess, International Women's Day for tomorrow. And of course, I will naturally extend that to all of the listeners who are with us this evening. So have a very amazing International Women's Day, everybody who is joining us or who is listening to this on the day.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So for those of you who don't know much about International Women's Day, it's held every year on the 8th of March. It's a global day and it's celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. It also marks a call to action. A big part of International Women's Day is about creating action around it could be empowerment, it could be the advancement of females in the workplace, girls' access to education. There's loads and loads of great initiatives going on within the International Women's Day movement. So do go to the website for International Women's Day and check out some of the things they've got. I went and had a look. There's loads of great stuff on there. There's really good resources to use in education, in the classroom. There's loads of good social media projects going on for advocacy work. So definitely go and check that out. I did read the little blurb that they've got at the beginning. I quite like it, so I'll read that out. It says, imagine a gender equal world, a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination, a world that's diverse, equitable, and inclusive, a world where difference is valued and celebrated. Together, we can forge women's equality. Collectively, we can all break the bias. And this is a hashtag for this year's International Women's Day event, this Break the Bias hashtag. So that's a little kind of introduction. And of course, you don't want to be listening to me. We want to be listening to Amira. So let's get started. Now, International Women's Day is all about, is a global event, and it's about everything to do with female empowerment, women and girls. But I want to turn us to education, turn our focus kind of in on what it is that we actually do. We both work in education. And I'm sure most people who are with us today work in education. So let's start there, Amira. My first question to you is going to be a yes or no question, actually. Is gender equity an issue in education here in MENA? I'm assuming I know what you're going to say.
I think yes. Yes,
We think
it
yes.
is.
Good.
Yeah, I think it's an issue, and I'm glad that we are discussing these topics now, unlike in the past, where such topics were not things that we would usually discuss in public, especially in this region where there are like certain issues and certain taboos that we don't talk about, and they are taken for granted. One of them is the gender roles. And how women are treated versus how men are treated, how boys are raised up versus how girls are raised up in our society. It's a lot of like culturally and socially loaded discussion as well. So in a nutshell, the answer is yes. And thinking about education, I was actually reading recently the report for the World Bank that said that in this region, actually, we did talk about the positive stuff. We did achieve gender equality, and now it's closing up to be about 60%. We still have 40% to work on. But again, like there are, like as I said, like social and cultural issues that might not be represented in numbers that we need to discuss and open as educators in our classes with our students and also in our academic circles.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a tricky one, and it has been this topic in this region. Obviously, I'm not from this region, so I've come in as an outsider. And I've seen, I mean, I've been in MENA for a long time. I first moved here in kind of mid 2000s. And I've seen a lot of changes. I've traveled extensively around both the Gulf, but also MENA more widely, the Levant, North Africa a lot. You know, and it differs definitely from place to place. Outside of MENA, I think people have a very kind of singular view of what MENA, certainly with what females in MENA, that representation is like. And once you're here and you travel a lot and you get to know people, you realize that it's actually a lot more complicated than that. But I've also seen a lot of advances, you know, even in places like Saudi Arabia, you know, there's the ones that we see in the media, you know, women have been allowed to drive, these types of things. But actually, I think when you dig under the skin of what goes on in MENA, there is a lot of things going on. There's a lot of work that is being done continuously. What kinds of things do you see? Like you see more than me, definitely. What kinds of changes have you seen over the years?
Yeah, just like before I shared this, I agree with the Natia in the chat box who said that it's not only in MENA because women issues and gender issues are everywhere. I agree. And I'm going to share the link to that very interesting report from the World Bank about gender issues everywhere. I think we all need to be aware of this because also talks about how it's done in education, which we all care about. As for the changes that I have seen, I think there are changes. The fact that we are now discussing these topics and trying to involve everyone in these discussions about women issues is a great step ahead. The idea that we are aware now as educators, and I'm saying this and I know this is something that's happening. Many educators now are aware of gender issues in their classes and they try to take active steps to be able to address gender issues in the classroom. The idea of awareness with these like celebrations of Women's Day and focus on how we can help women who need support in some like areas that are less privileged or low income areas where women and girls sometimes do not get the access that they need to education and to professional support, being aware that there is a need, we have this cause is actually something that is positive. Talking about general sectors, there are like ideas for women empowerment that emerged in politics. So we have representation in leadership in politics, and I'm very happy and proud of this is not in the MENA region, but in Africa, actually, that we have a female president in Tanzania.
Yes.
And I think this is really a breakthrough. We also have in different governments in the MENA region, we have representation from women. Still,
Yeah.
it's not really equal representation to men, but we have more than what we had before. Here in Egypt, only last week, we had the first group of female judges sworn into office. And this was a breakthrough in our society to have judges who were females. I'm
I,
seeing
I
changes.
saw that in the news.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
there
great,
was it 60 of them, 61 or
yes,
62?
60,
Yeah,
exactly.
I saw this in the news. There was the first Supreme, I can't remember what the term was. Like the
Court.
head of, yeah, head of the Supreme Court or something. It was the first time, yeah, which is an amazing achievement. And you know that, and progress is progress, right? You have to make those small steps along the way, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's true. And as much as I don't necessarily believe all the time in numbers when it comes to gender gaps, because we can have women who are there in leadership positions, but their experience is not really the best experience. I do believe in the idea also of like improving the quality of women experience in these positions. The idea when we talk about how many girls get access to education today, it's I would say relatively high, especially in countries where the education attainment has become really a need and something that also the state is working hard to achieve, like here also in my country, and I'm sure in other countries in North Africa. So the idea that we are working hard to get or improve the access of girls to education is great, but I believe improving their experience in school is also as important. So the idea when they are in the classroom and how they are treated by the teacher, how many times they speak in the class, how many times the teacher pay attention to girls who are silent in class, all of these issues, in addition to also like the safety of the girls going back and from school. Is something that also is of a great value, of a great importance for us to reflect on. So numbers are great, but also in addition to improving the numbers, we also need to look at the experience.
Yes, and I agree with that 110%. I worked in sub-Saharan Africa for a few years before I moved to MENA, several years actually. And yeah, I worked in girls' education, and access was one area. But yeah, you have these people that say, oh, we've got 80% of girls going to school. But actually, the bigger issues, there is the issue of dynamics in the class, which is one that you mentioned. But one of the biggest issues for girls within school was things like the condition of sanitary equipment, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. You know, a lot of girls would drop out of school just because the healthcare and the support around sanitation just wasn't high enough for them. So yeah, you're definitely right. Quality is definitely more important than just making sure that we've shoved all of those girls into school. Well done, guys. We've got them in there. So yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and this what like I was really very happy to read that in sub-Saharan Africa, although we have these like difficult conditions we talk about, there are a lot of initiatives started by teachers, and this is something that is going to be shared in our event tomorrow at AfricaELTA, started by teachers to help those girls at school to have better access to classes, to better access to education through these initiatives. And that's why sub-Saharan Africa has actually jumped before the MENA region in terms of gender equality, because of some initiatives that were really seriously done to improve the condition of women and girls. According to the World Economic Forum report in 2021. I'm aware of this because I was really writing research about this recently and collecting these numbers. So I was very happy to see this, because we might think in this like less privileged context, the situation is bad, but because of the initiatives and the awareness that I mentioned earlier of teachers and educators in our context, they are doing a lot of work to improve it for the girls.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, amazing. So we've got quite a few issues that we've already touched on. We've talked about support for kind of vulnerable students, girls. We've talked about some of the barriers that the women and girls might face and how we might challenge some of them, I guess. A lot of this is about challenging that, right? If we think about that hashtag, it's about challenging bias, being conscious and thinking deeper about the effects of our actions, both, I guess, both for men and women. What am I doing? Am I empowering other girls and other women as well? Or am I not empowering, disempowering them by the actions that I make? Because we can all empower or disempower people in the things that we do every day. And we're not very conscious of that, right? A lot of these things are very subverted, subconscious actions that we do.
That's true. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about role models, because I want to know from you. We've mentioned a couple of people. We mentioned the judges that have just been sworn in. What about what kind of role models do girls in education need here in MENA? Are there a lot of role models for them? Can we do better when it comes to role models?
That's a great question, because I think we do need the role models in our life to look up to and to see that things can happen. Like if you see someone who has achieved a great success in a certain field, you feel the same, that you can do the same. There is hope. But I would say in our context, and I think since we are talking about education, I think for young girls, the role model for them, because it was the same for me as well, was my teacher. The idea that you have someone in the classroom, especially in our context, where we, or talking about myself, because now there are changes in the education system that do not really rely on only exams and teacher being the center of the classroom. But the way I was educated, we had the teacher as the center of the classroom. So my role model was like my teacher in the classroom, the teacher that I saw as loving, caring, and supportive, the one that I saw as successful in her way of managing the class and giving us a good lesson in this very small and very, I would say, limited context. Talking about role models, I think for young girls would be teachers, especially also in contexts where the girls might not have a lot of access to a lot of, I would say, knowledge resources. So they have their parents, they have their teachers. Some girls in low-income contexts do not necessarily also have access to TV sometimes, or internet. So I would say I'm talking about this category a lot, because I think this is the group that we want to work for. And the teacher, if the teacher is aware of their role, whether they are male or female, because I have had teachers in different stages of my life, in different stages of my education, until also my master's. I always had someone I looked up to as an educator, and I think they have had a lot of profound effect on the person I am today. And I would claim this is the same situation for our young girls. If you want to talk about role models in terms of politics and larger scale, I think we are starting to witness some, especially with the greater access of women into public life, into different fields of health, of economy, technology, politics, of course. These are inspiring models. But just like to be relevant, I believe the teachers are the ones who are the main
Yeah.
source of
Yeah, I
inspiration
mean,
for.
yeah, and they say, you know, that your parents and your teachers are the two people, or could be three people, that you spend the most time with when you're a child, right? Other than your peers. So, you know, as an adult, you are one of their primary role models. I would definitely agree with that. And I would actually link the discussion that we were having before about representation to what you were just discussing then. I think that yes, teachers are amazing role models, and people are definitely agreeing with you in the chat box, saying, you know, they're the first role models. We're really good role models for our students and for girls. But actually, I think if we think about representation in terms of what we present to them, again, that consciousness, being conscious of making sure that we show girls a variety of other role models in the materials that we use within our lessons. And there are so many great local role models. You know, you've only got to kind of skim through social media. You know, here in the UAE, you know, females have done some amazing things. You know, so finding local successes by females and then showing them to our students in class, I think helps them to see that they can achieve those things. I could be like this as well. This is not, you know, another American woman who is
Mhm.
doing whatever. These are people who come from where I come. I can see myself in that, and that inspires me to get into all sorts of things. And it doesn't have to be just teaching or politics. It can be the arts, science,
Exactly.
engineering, and
Sports.
anything. Yeah, absolutely. Yes,
Yeah,
sports, all of these different areas. If we show them those role models and local role models, that will, I think, again, like somebody was saying, those small steps that we can take to push them and inspire them, I think that's really important.
I agree. And I agree that if we really search for these role models, you're going to find them, especially now because like I just like had a lesson last week with my students about girls going cycling in Cairo. And it was like in the news about a girl who started to go cycling. And she was talking about her experience and how the society viewed this, how her parents viewed this as really something that's not really suitable for a girl to do, and how she challenged this and started to go cycling with her friends. And then people started to change their conceptions and started to say, wow, what you did was great. And I shared this article with my students, and I would try to open the discussion, like, what would you think about this? And this, in this very unique context, was really, I think, a powerful discussion, because like the boys and girls, and this is something also that I think we sometimes do as teachers, like, what do you think as a boy, what do you think as a girl? I don't think we should really stress this, although in the beginning, before knowing about all of these issues myself, I used to do this, like thinking that I'm in this way, I'm empowering the girls and letting them know that they are girls and they can speak. But it backfires, because they feel that they are girls, so they are expected to be silent, not share their opinions. And if they share it, that's really an achievement, which is not the case, that we should really encourage. So I opened this discussion with my students, and we started discussing how this was really challenging the societal conceptions about what the girl should do. And in Cairo, which is like the capital, not necessarily like in a city outside the capital. So I agree that we can find, of course, role models who might not made it to the news, but who have done local initiatives to show something about what girls and women can do.
Yeah, and it's such a nice example, and I think really highlights that importance of bringing things like social and emotional learning and values and respect into the classroom. You know, can we value and respect each other's points of view? Is it a safe and open space in the classroom for students to be able to have open and honest discussions about the way that they feel about things? You know, I've noticed somebody was putting, Bilal was putting about materials, and course books have been guilty of this for a long time, not thinking deeply enough about what they put in course books in terms of representation of male and female roles, all of these types of things. So yeah, I mean, and having discussions with students about that, I think is really important. Yes, you might be stuck with a course book and you might not be that happy with it, but you can still talk to your students about it. You can still say, you know, this is not what it should be like, and things are improving. What would you like to see it like in the future? All of these types of things. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and I think always like I agree about the idea of the textbook because this is something that we as teachers sometimes are tied to, and because of the time we might not have the luxury of finding extra material, bringing it to class. But if we just like take this activity I did with my students, took only about 20 minutes. It was a very short article and we read it quickly, and the focus was not necessarily in addition to the language focus, which was the reading skills on reading strategies that we were practicing. We also had some critical thinking discussion questions that we discussed in only 20 minutes. So I agree with like those who said that the curriculum might be something that we might not really do anything about because of the time. But if we do this activity like once a month, it can, I think, help students and raise awareness about these issues.
Yeah, and like as you say, you're bringing all those other areas, vital areas of learning in, critical thinking being one of them. You know, we cannot develop critical thinking skills by just teaching them the language. We have to get them engaged with questions and the way that they think. So, you know, there's value in the activity from an academic point of view anyway, I think. So, yeah, really nice. I wanted to talk about role models because obviously you're the president of Africa ELTA. So you are a role model yourself to others, could be to fellow teachers who might look up to you, you know, in terms of the progress or the achievements that you've made in terms of becoming president. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your role. So how did you become the president of Africa ELTA, and what's the experience been like for you?
Oh, okay. That's an interesting question. Um, well, like I would say, just the answer to cut it short, it was all professional service. And the idea that like we as teachers going beyond the classroom and trying to share what we were doing. I've always been very passionate about sharing what I'm doing in the class with my colleagues, even at work. Like I used to teach a lesson and go out of the class and tell my colleagues about the lesson that I have taught, and we discuss it together. And this is how I got engaged in professional service. First, in my local teacher affiliate here in Egypt, Nile TESOL, where I really learned a lot about professional service, volunteering in our field, and also leadership. Uh, I was the president of Nile TESOL before becoming the president of AfricaELTA. And the idea of serving and the idea of doing something beyond teaching is very motivating. And I always like say this to colleagues who sometimes feel tired because teaching is a very demanding job. And for me, if I were not doing like these things in addition to teaching of like serving and working, I call it working because of course it requires time and commitment, but at the end of the day volunteering in teacher associations, I would have been really not a teacher now. I wouldn't have stayed in the job for that long because it gave me energy to continue. It gave me energy to also keep working on myself as an educator, as a teacher, to become better for serving other teachers, to be qualified more to also give to other teachers. So this was the way I got involved. And AfricaELTA is really a very inspiring context for me to work in because I met teachers there who are doing great efforts in helping colleagues and also in helping their students. And many of the teachers are working in very difficult conditions. very challenging context in terms of like access to resources and of course to connectivity. Most of our activities have been so far online because of the pandemic. But during the pandemic, we were able to reach out to more teachers because we have those amazing teachers who would like to help their colleagues and students by being involved in these professional opportunities. I've really learned a lot by working in AfricaELTA and meeting all the African teachers who are doing great job. And many of them actually inspired me with this idea of doing things outside of the curriculum because they also do have this problem like all of us as teachers, but the idea of meeting students outside of the class and starting English clubs, this is something I think is unique to African teachers. You would hear a lot about English clubs in African schools, and these are clubs that are started by teachers outside the working hours to help students practice English and work on their language skills and to discuss these topics that they don't have time to discuss in class. And this was one idea that actually they inspired me with. There are a lot of other ideas. So it's a very like rewarding experience for me, actually.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I've done quite a few of these podcasts now, and I've asked that similar question to a few people, and the the message that comes back it always seems to be very, very similar. It's very much about getting involved, putting yourself out there, being brave, um, connecting with people, trying new things. Yeah, and then just kind of building and behind all of that, the feeling that I always get is this passion that teachers, and obviously I've been a teacher, but seeing so many teachers who are so passionate that they invest so much more. It's more than a job to most people. It's not just go to school, teach, come home again. You know, they're really passionate. It's really a profession for them. And you know, when you're talking, that's really coming through, which is great. So for Africa ELTA, I know that you've got an event tomorrow, actually, another one to celebrate International Women's Day. Can you tell us a little bit about your session? Because I know you're actually doing a session in that event tomorrow.
Yes. So this is our event to celebrate the International Women's Day, and we have 9 speakers coming from different African countries. They're all teachers who have started initiatives for supporting women and girls' education in the continent, in their classrooms, and also in their communities. And I'm very excited about their presentations, and I'm sure everyone is going to really enjoy them. As for my session, it's going to be about mentoring and leadership, 2 things that I'm passionate about. And I will talk about how we did it at AfricaELTA through different programs, actually. One of them is the female leadership program that we started 2 years ago with Eve, Equal Voices in ELT, where we mentored and supported female African classroom teachers to acquire presentation skills. And this really started with the idea that we had at AfricaELTA of gender equality. The idea that when we were thinking about our conferences and we were trying to think about female speakers in addition to male speakers, usually when we ask it for nominations for speakers, we got male speakers. And we acknowledged this need that we would like to really identify the female speakers. And we know that they exist, but we just need to find them. So we started this program to locate and identify very active and passionate female classroom teachers from different African countries to join us and learn about presentation skills. And in the program we had in 2021, we added proposal writing skills to the training. So they now learn how to present in addition to how to write conference proposals and be ready to present at our international conference and also at other international events. The teachers we had from last year's program have all become actually stars, presenting at different local conferences in their countries and also international events. And we have had the second cohort of teachers only last month giving the final presentations. And one of them is going to be presenting tomorrow with us in the event, talk about her initiative for girls' education in Tanzania. I'm very proud of this program because it's one of the initiatives we have had at AfricaELTA to support women. And I would also like to mention that this has been a very conscious and intentional effort at AfricaELTA to support women and to also defy these gender issues. Because in our board also we have a good representation of female leaders, and we try to also encourage other affiliates in Africa, other teacher associations in Africa to follow suit. And many of them have started to have female vice presidents and female leaders who are part of their board members, not due to us, but because I think also leading by example is important, as you were talking about role models. So this is something that we also have in our code of work, the idea of gender balance.
It sounds great, and I really like the fact that I went to the event's homepage. You can find it on Facebook if you want to attend tomorrow. It's there. If you just go to AfricaELTA Facebook page, you can see the event itself. But I think one of the things that really jumped out was, this celebration of stories. There are these people who are out there. There are these women who are out there promoting women and girls' education, and certainly across Africa, it's both women and girls' education. That's furthering literacy and education for women as well is really important across the continent, I think. But I really like what you were just saying then, that you've got this leadership, this mentoring program that you've been running, which is great because it brings together what we were just talking about. So yes, you can't just have opportunities. There's got to be that support as well. You can't just say, oh, they've got opportunities to get involved. There's nothing stopping them from coming and presenting at the conference. Actually, you're saying, well, no, they need a lot of support. They need presentation skills, proposal writing skills. They need confidence as well. So we've done that. So you bring that together, but then also I like the fact that you're using that as a platform to influence. So you're spreading that influence to others and saying, this is what's needed. Get involved in your area. And I think, people here can take that away and take it into the Gulf or, and that is in Georgia, other parts of the world. And again, spreading that inspiration, I think is really nice. Yeah. Really
and just like to add to what you said, Nassan, the idea of calling for women to speak up or calling for girls to just speak up in class. And I've read this research, it's not recent research, but I came across it recently, where the researcher was really interested in getting to know how the teacher approached the gender issues in the classroom. And most of the students that she interviewed, the female students, said that they feel that they do not speak enough. They feel that they are shy, that they are quiet. They blame themselves for being silent in the classroom. And I think this is the issue with most of the calls or the advocacy calling women to speak up and show initiative, because we do not really look into the reasons why they are not speaking up. And I think this is the trigger that got us really interested in this, starting this program, that we identified there is a need, but also what could we do to encourage those women to be visible. And now also with this program, we are identifying another need among our African male teachers, that they need this training to also be visible in conferences and events that we have. So
Huh.
we are going to also, we are still discussing this as a board, and we are thinking that this can be also a third program that we do, where we have the women and men together being mentored, achieving the gender balance in this sense as well,
Course.
giving both of them equal opportunities.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So it sounds like you're doing so much great work. So I definitely advise people to connect with Africa ELTA and see that the work that they're doing, either for inspiration or to get involved or to, there's loads of things that people can do. But definitely check out the event that the Africa ELTA team have got going on tomorrow. If you want to learn more about gender injustice, elevating self-esteem, promoting and empowering female student leadership, all of these types of issues are going to be in that event. And Amira's just put that in the chat. So people can click on that link and go and find out about the event. Coming towards the end, but actually tomorrow is going to be a really busy day for you, because that's not the only event that you're doing tomorrow, right? You're also taking part in a British Council panel event as well, right? So we've got a couple of minutes. Can you tell us a little bit about that event?
Yeah, this is going to be a live discussion on teaching English for the British Council. And we are going to discuss gender issues in the classroom and focusing again on women and girls education, and talking about what can we do as educators to spread awareness about this important topic. So we are going to have, I think, a very interesting discussion, because we are going to have different representations from different contexts. So I'm looking forward to it as well.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds really interesting. And again, there's a Facebook page, I think, for that event as well. So if people want to check that one out, that one's going to be less presentation and more, I think, discussion, more kind of panel-based Q&As, sharing experiences and advice. It's a bit more around that kind of thing. And it's all around the theme, break the bias. So it's all around that hashtag. So yeah, I think that'll be a really nice event. So you've got 2 events going on, which is great. You're going to be super busy tomorrow. So we're coming towards the end. Do you have any tips? We like to make it nice and practical, the podcast. We've got a few more minutes towards the end. In terms of the theme, let's take the theme, advancing gender equity, thinking about where we are and realistic steps that we can take. Any kind of practical tips that you would give to listeners?
Yes, I'm very happy to see among the audience you have a lot of male participants, because usually when we do these events, and this is something that we get also on social media, sometimes when we post these events about women, we get questions from teachers who are men asking if they can attend. Actually, like, I'm very happy that we have a lot of male teachers and male professionals attending. And I would like, if we are going to end with the message, I'd like to say that the efforts that we are doing for women and girls education are going to be, or are more fruitful, if we also open up to the society and not have it only exclusively among girls and women, because we need the society to join the board. And I'm talking here also about involving our male colleagues, because there are some initiatives for women empowerment that are exclusively for women, and they promote this idea that we are doing this because we want to fight men or something, or because we want girls to be more powerful than boys. But I would like to say that the initiatives that we are doing for empowering women and working with women to become better professionals, better educators, and better leaders is something that is actually a responsibility of all the society, because women are our teachers, our mothers. They are the ones who raise up our next generation. And if we improve the conditions of women in the different aspects, we are going to see a better society. So it's not just for women, it's also for the whole society.
Yeah, I mean, and that is such an important point to make. I think you're definitely right when it comes to the issue of women's rights, gender equality. People do think that oh, well, sometimes I've heard questions like, well, what about boys? Boys often don't have access to education. And I think that the day is definitely not about that. It's recognizing that I think girls and women disproportionately are affected by a lot of things that men just aren't. I think that's really the point. It's about raising human rights for everybody, I think is a big part of it. In fact, there's a really nice quote that's actually on the International Women's Day 2022 website by Gloria Steinem. And the quote is, "The story of women's struggle for equality belongs to no single feminist, nor to any one organization, but to the collective efforts of all who care about human rights." And I think that kind of sums up exactly what you just said, really, that it's actually about everybody's human rights. If we improve the condition of education for girls and for women, it actually improves society for everybody. So I think that's a really important point to make. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm reading the comments, and yeah, I like what Rubina said as well, that educating a woman is educating the entire family and society as well.
Yeah. And there's so much research out there that's around, if you empower a mother in a home, how much it benefits the whole family, but especially the children. They're more likely to become literate, they're more likely to gain employment, they're more likely to stay in school, all of these types of things. There's loads of great research around that topic. Okay, I know that you're involved in a couple of events, but I also want to mention a couple of events as well that I would like people to also look up. So tomorrow I'm going to post this video onto my own LinkedIn and onto the Macmillan Facebook page. And I will again put the links to Amira's events, both of them, but I will also put a link to another event because obviously Macmillan is part of Springer Nature, as most people know, the academic I don't know what I want to call it, the academic part of Macmillan. And they've got an event going on as well, which is also free. It's on the 9th and the 10th. And it's looking at all of the achievements of women working in academia, industry, and policy making. And it's gonna be similar to what you're doing with the British Council. It's going to be a lot of panel discussions. They actually call them fireside chats, which I thought was quite cute. And there's a few keynote talks as well, but it goes over 2 days and it's all around the sustainable development goal number 5, which is gender equality. And it's looking at partnerships, allies, what we can be doing within institutions to make improvements, advances, progress in terms of women's access, what women are doing, highlighting the successes that they're making. So I definitely wanted to point out that event because I think it's going to be a really good one as well. And I will post the link to that. And if you want to know any more about Macmillan's work around diversity, equity, and inclusion, I would point you in the direction of the Global Teachers Festival that we had a couple of weeks ago. And if you go to the Macmillan English website and you go to Webinar Archive and you go to day 9, you will see a really good keynote talk by Zarina Suam on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that could be a really nice way of, she's got so many great experiences around inclusion and equity. And she's done loads of great stuff, loads of good work. So I would definitely go and check out. They're the 2 things that I would point people in the direction of. Okay, Amira, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your experiences, telling us about the work that you've been doing and pointing people in the right direction for the events that you're going to be involved in. Again, I'd like to wish you a very happy International Women's Day for tomorrow. And I'd like to thank everybody who has been with us this evening. I know it's been a late one this evening, but I hope everybody leaves this podcast feeling enthused and inspired to go off and raise awareness. Again, highlight those successes of the girls that are in your class even. Highlight their successes, make them feel confident, make them feel like they can be anyone and do anything. Amira, I'm going to leave the floor with you. You can make the last comments if you wish.
Thank you, Nathan, for the invitation first and for this session. I enjoyed discussing this topic with you and the audience. And I'd like to invite all of you to join us tomorrow for our AfricaELTA International Women's Day. And we are going to spend the night listening to stories from teachers coming from the classroom, dealing with gender issues themselves and trying to find solutions for some of the challenges. So we'll be looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, thank you very much. Wonderful. Everybody have a wonderful and very happy International Women's Day. Go and check out our other ELTea Time MENA podcast episodes. We've got another one on Friday coming up, which I will be posting again later in the week. And I will look forward to seeing you hopefully at that podcast episode. But for tonight, thank you all very much. And Amira, thank you very much. And I will see you hopefully soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.